Welcome back. Let's make life sciences make sense. Today, we're covering oogenesis, the making of an egg cell.
So, today we're diving deep into a really amazing microscopic journey. We're going to start with the basics. What exactly is oogenesis? Then we'll follow a single cell as it gets ready for this incredible transformation. We'll get into the super important process of meiosis, meet the star of the show, the mature egg, and finally, we'll look at the hormones that are basically running the whole operation. All right, first up, let's set the stage and get to the heart of what this whole process is all about. It's a pretty fundamental question, right? We all know egg cells are absolutely essential for life to begin, but where do they even come from? How does the body go about creating such a complex and vital cell? Well, the answer is a process called oogenesis. The easiest way to think about it is like this. Most of the cells in your body are diploid, meaning they have a full set of your DNA. Oogenesis is the special process that creates a cell with only half that genetic information, making it haploid. And that's critical because that way, when it joins with a sperm cell, which also has half, the new cell has the perfect, complete set of genetic instructions. And where does this incredible biological drama unfold? It all goes down inside the ovaries. That's the stage where our story really begins. So let's get into the first phase. It's all about preparation and multiplication. You gotta build up a big pool of potential candidates before the main event can start. This is what we call the multiplication phase. It all kicks off with these diploid germinal cells. Through a process called mitosis, which is basically like a biological copy machine, these cells just divide and multiply over and over again. The result? A massive supply of follicles, each one housing a potential egg cell. It's like creating a huge reserve for the future. Okay, now we're getting to the most critical part of this whole transformation. This is where an ordinary cell becomes a gamete, a sex cell, ready for its big mission. So out of that huge pool of follicles we just talked about, only one gets chosen each cycle to move on. It's like the chosen one. So what exactly happens to this special follicle? It goes through meiosis. Now, this is the key step. Remember how mitosis was just about making identical copies? Well, meiosis is totally different. It's a very special kind of cell division that's all about cutting the genetic information in half. This is the magic that takes us from a regular diploid cell to a haploid egg cell. And meiosis happens in two main stages. In meiosis I, the cell pulls its paired chromosomes apart. Then, in meiosis II, it splits those individual chromosomes. So, from that one starting cell, you end up with 4 haploid cells. And here's the cool part. Each one has a unique mix of genes. But this is where the story takes a really interesting twist. Get this, the process is designed to make 4 cells, right? But in oogenesis, only one actually makes it. The other 3, called polar bodies, are basically discarded. So why does this happen? It's an amazing act of biological efficiency. The body funnels all the nutrients and all the good stuff from the cytoplasm into one single supercell, giving it the absolute best chance to survive after fertilization. So let's zoom in on that one survivor, the mature ovum. Its entire structure is perfectly engineered for its incredibly important job. An ovum really has 3 main parts. First, you've got the haploid nucleus, which is holding that precious half set of DNA needed for life. Then there's the jelly layer, which acts like a protective shield and, crucially, becomes impenetrable once one sperm gets in. And finally, you have the cytoplasm, which is just packed with all the food and energy the cell will need to get going in its earliest stages. Okay, so we've seen the cell's journey, but none of this just happens by itself. The whole thing is directed by a very precise schedule of hormones. They're the real conductors of this biological orchestra. This graph really shows what we mean by a hormonal symphony. It's this complex dance of hormones, a constant back and forth communication between the brain and the ovaries, using these chemical messengers. The precise rise and fall of each of these hormones is what drives the entire cycle forward. The first signals actually come from the pituitary gland in the brain. You have follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, which does exactly what it sounds like. It tells the follicle to wake up and start growing. Then, a big spike in luteinizing hormone, or LH, is the final trigger that causes ovulation, the release of that mature egg from the ovary. And in response to those signals, the ovary starts making its own hormones.
As that follicle grows, it pumps out estrogen. Estrogen's job is to tell the uterine lining to build itself up, to get ready for a potential pregnancy. Then, after ovulation, what's left of the follicle, now called the corpus luteum, starts producing progesterone. And that hormone's job is to maintain that thickened lining, keeping it a welcoming place for implantation. So, we end on this question, which really gets to the heart of oogenesis. Meiosis is built to create 4 cells, but in the process of making an egg, 3 are sacrificed for the sake of 1. It's this profound example of nature choosing quality over quantity every single time. It really makes you think about the immense biological investment that goes into every single potential new life. Something to ponder. Thanks for watching.